All right, and let's answer this question. What emerged as the country's leading manufacturing center? Anybody call out? New England, yes, by far. South called it un-American because of the roads, canals, mostly in the west and north. You don't see the word South up there. Tariffs also hurt the South because they're exporting their goods, they're importing their goods, so the South is really getting hurt. Now, it doesn't mean that the North did not import or export, but it's going to hurt the South the most. Okay. So understand the tariff, the North still had to pay it, but since the North had manufactured goods, they didn't have to import as much. So the tariffs really hurt the South the most. Okay. Lowell Mills, again, take a look at the picture on the right. Life in the factory, the Lowell Mill girls. Labor unions not very effective, although the first strike would happen in Lowell Mills. There were actually a series of strikes. Finally, they got some things out of it. Let's just read through this as a refresher. Kaylee, please. Start at the very top, please.
Creating his own manufacturing enterprise in the United States, introduced mass production of cotton to the U.S. He expanded his mill to Boston and
Okay, and we took a look at Lucy Larson's quote, and basically she is describing how horrible it really was. Okay, now in industries, period, it was tough. I mean, you didn't have safety laws and rules and things like that. There was no OSHA. All right. A lot of that does not change till late 1800s into the 1900s with the progressive movement, when people like Upton Sinclair write The Jungle. Anybody familiar with that book? It's basically about the meat industry and how horrible it really was. Okay. So a lot of this doesn't change for really about 100 years. Okay. All right. That system. And of course, you can see Clay was definitely in favor of the American system. Okay. And let's just read this to hear it. Bryson, please.
Opposition to the proposed American system of paternal improvements was a result of regional interests overriding national concerns.
And we're looking at regional interests in the North. National concerns were ignored. Okay, moving on then. Slavery was tearing the nation apart. We have sectionalism. Who warned us about sectionalism? Washington, yes, dividing the North and the South. Two reasons, slavery and freedom, and also understand the division was over industry versus agriculture. Now, you would definitely say that the division was over slavery and freedom. That's why I listed that first. But I also want you to know there was a dividing and division between industry and agriculture. And the American system was definitely benefiting the North. Okay? So when we get to the Civil War, I want you to understand there are some people that are going to fight this war for economic reasons. Yes, slavery is involved in that, okay? But that's not the only reason for the war. In my opinion, it's the biggest reason, no two ways about it. But it is not the only reason. And I want you to understand that, okay? If I go back to this slide, once again, to reiterate my point, look at the division there, look at the opposition and the hard feelings, but up there you don't see anything about slavery on that slide, okay? So there's more than slavery, okay? More than slavery. And that's the key point. Okay, cotton is king. Definitely we know that. We took a look at this, all right? So let's take a look at this. Commercial agriculture, cotton is king. Anybody read and fill in the blanks? I lost my spot myself. Where are we at? Bottom of 6. Okay, yeah, here we go. Very bottom of 6, the last section there. Sarah, get in the game, please.
In the early 1800s, farming became more of a commercial enterprise and less a means of providing subsistence for the family. This change to cash crops was brought on by a blend of factors.
Okay, make sure you underline cash crops. What happened is farmers were farming to make money, and that was new, and I want you to understand that. Before they farmed to subsist. What does that mean? If I say a farmer farms to subsist, Georgia.
Like just to like maintain like their own home.
Exactly, in their own lives.
Yeah.
Cash crops changes all this. And the big cash crop by far is cotton. Can you make an argument for tobacco? Sure. You can make an argument for tobacco today. It's one of the biggest agricultural products as far as making money. Okay. Governments make a lot of money on tobacco. But at this time, cotton was number one. Cotton is still bigger than tobacco. Look at your clothing. You're going to see cotton. Okay. No two ways about it. All right. Cheap land, easy credit. Where was a lot of cheap land and who gave easy credit? Go ahead.
There's a lot of cheap land in the West, and the banks gave easy credit.
I want you to know that. Easy credit. What does that mean? What does that mean if I say a bank gives easy credit? What does that mean? You got to know this because it's going to lead to depressions and panics and things like that. Go ahead.
They like don't have to pay as much.
Well, they might give low interest. Yes, I'll give you that. What else? Go ahead.
Well, it's just easier to purchase things.
Yeah, it's easier to purchase because it's easier to get a loan. Well, you look like you can pay us back. We'll give you a loan. We're not looking for collateral, and that's what I want you to understand. Banks didn't really care if you could pay it back. They just assumed you could. The problem is what happens when people don't pay their loans back? Yeah, the banks go bankrupt, literally. And that's one of the reasons for the Great Depression, 1929. Also, panics at this time, too. All right, markets. What opened new markets growing in the growing cities in the East? Ella, please. Good. Canals, railroads. What was the principal cash crop, everybody? Cotton. One of these days. Okay. I mean, it's like we're at Field of Screams when you do that. You know what I mean? Whose invention transformed the agriculture of the entire region, everybody? And what did the South invest their capital in? New land where?
Alabama.
That is very important, that Alabama and Mississippi. Underline that because I want you to know slavery is spreading. Okay? The effects of the market revolution. What did specialization on the farm, the growth of cities, industrialization, and the development of modern capitalism mean? The end of. Yes, self-sufficient households. Now everybody's interconnected. There is no greater example of seeing that than today. When you look at our supply chain, okay, how we're all interconnected. You have a couple of trucks out in California, well, a lot of trucks that don't deliver products, and all of a sudden our shelves are going bare. Okay, there's no greater example, and we're living right through it, so we can definitely relate to that. Okay. Take the next couple there. Gracie, take one, and then when you're done, pass it off to Amy, please. Let's go over this.
The farmers fed workers in the cities who in turn provided for families with an array of mass-produced goods.
The standard of living increased.
You two work it out.
However, there were challenges. Women, what were the two choices for women? The nature of work and family life.
And don't forget, I would also throw in teaching there. Women were teachers, yes. Nowhere near to the number of Lowell Mills, though, as far as an occupation. Okay, continue, please.
If women were married, they probably took up jobs later on at home. For women gaining control over their lives, arranged marriages weren't as common and they had children.
What were some issues women had to deal with? Legal restrictions, particularly voting rights.
Yep, and other legal restrictions. Certainly, you know, it really was a man's world. I do want you to know that, okay? Might have changed a little bit in divorce laws, but other than that, you know, that definitely was, you know, if a man and woman got divorced, yes, a woman could get divorced, but that doesn't mean she was treated fairly, okay? And I want you to understand that. We got a long way to go. Women are not guaranteed the right to vote till 1920. We got 100 years yet, okay? All right, go ahead, please.
Economic and social mobility. The gap between what and what increased is the wealthy and the poor. What did occur? Social mobility.
Social mobility, the ability to advance, yes. Okay, I want you to know that you could go from rags to riches, and many people did, like Carnegie, Rockefeller, to give you a couple of names later on. Go ahead, please.
Examples of poor and hardworking people becoming millionaires, however, rare.
Okay. All right, cult of domesticity. I want to go over this. This is not specifically on your handout, but I do want you to know this. Cult of domesticity, the cult of true womanhood. What does cult mean? What does cult mean? C-U-L-T, what does that mean? Gracie?
I kind of agree with people that do like a certain thing together.
Yes. What does it mean if you're trapped in a cult? I'll go one step further. Think of the word culture. So if the culture of domesticity, a culture of true womanhood, Gracie, what do you think that means?
Like they're kind of stuck there and they can't really get out of it.
Yeah, once you're in that belief. Well, guess what? A lot of people were, including women themselves. Cult of true womanhood. What's going on in the picture? What's going on here? Do you see that? Cult of true womanhood. And yes, that is done as a sarcastic title. Ella.
We see the woman taking care of the children and doing a lot of your stereotypical things that they assigned to women back in that time period. You see the men in the house working and doing what they assigned to men at that time.
Okay, go one step further with man there. What's the man doing?
Not taking care of his children.
Well, I agree with that. Yes, I agree. Go ahead.
The man is reading, so this is feeding in how men were typically at the time more educated than women as well.
Which implies the education. Yes, education. And we'll talk more about that. Okay. Okay, cult of domesticity, true womanhood. Opinion about women in the 1800s believed that women should stay home, not have careers. If they did work, money belonged to the husband. And a lot of that happened in Lowell Mills. I do want you to be aware of that. Okay. Okay, let's read through the bullet points there at the bottom. Kaylee, when you're ready, please. Yes, please.
A life in the home. Women were expected to marry and take care of home life. Few, if any, opportunities for women in higher education or skilled professions. Besides homemaking, women were encouraged to engage in activities like reading, sewing, or leisure Bible reading. If women were to work, they would be paid about half the amount of a man doing the same job, no work or other unskilled jobs.
Okay, very good. All right, let's go to your handout then. And I asked you, by the way, to take a look at that more so. What I would encourage you to do for this assignment is to research it using your iPad. Look at some websites. What's the difference between the cult of domesticity and Republican motherhood? And there definitely is a difference. And have that for me by Wednesday, okay? I'm sure you'll knock it out very easily. That's the last assignment for the chapter. Okay. Slavery. Many, including Jefferson, thought and hoped what was going to happen to slavery. Everybody. Disappear. The soil would become exhausted. It's going to die out. But we know that didn't happen because what happened?
The cotton gin was made and slavery increased.
Yes, and people started moving where? Which direction? West and south. Yes, south and west. Okay. But many thought slavery was going to die out because look at the next question. What was banned in 1808? Good. Yeah, the slave trade, importation of slaves. Many thought slavery was going to die out, but what happened is the slaves in the South continued being slaves, and the children of slaves were slaves. That's what I want you to understand. There was no giving freedom like it once was. See, a lot of times in the South, Southern slave owners actually freed slaves. at certain ages, etc. But once this happened, then Southern slave owners said, well, we're going to hold on to slaves. And the children of slaves were slaves. So that really actually, believe it or not, increased slavery. Okay, it actually had the reverse effect because now slaves in the South were not given freedom. Okay, however, what do we got there? Fill it in, Bryson.
However, the growth of the cotton industry and the expansion of slavery in the U states such as Alabama, Mississippi, ended hopes for a quiet end to slavery. His arguments over the Missouri Compromise suggested the slavery should provide easy answers.
Okay, a population of enslaved African Americans chart. Anybody get a summation there by looking at it? Ella?
I said that the biggest growth in slavery was in Virginia, but I'm not sure if I'm right on that because I didn't know what time period. There were like 3 different time periods, and I didn't know where we were starting and stopping.
Well, we're looking at from the beginning in the chart, the beginning dates to the end. And you're absolutely right. Slavery was growing mostly in Virginia, yes. I just simply made a general statement. And let me just say it this way. Decreasing in the North, if not completely gone. But expanding in the South and West. Okay? Expanding in the South and West. Okay, and let's explore the screen here and let's take a look at this. That kind of goes with those last 2 questions. What's happening on these maps? Go left to right. Okay, slave population, 1820, 1860, just before the Civil War starts. Missouri Compromise, by the way. Here you got cotton production. So what's happening? Georgia?
I guess the increase in slaves over time increased the amount of cotton being produced.
And both of those would be correct. Amy, anything to add to that?
I was just going to say it could be vice versa as well.
Yes.
More common.
Okay, now what led to that happening? Go ahead.
You mentioned the cotton gin.
The cotton gin, yes, and one other thing. Go ahead.
Sexualism.
Sectionalism, I agree. There's something else though. Go ahead.
Sam Slater's factories.
Agreed. Go ahead.
Industrialization.
All those are right. I would also remind you to include the end of the international slave trade. Okay? Because people in the South are now holding on to slaves. So what's happening is slavery is actually increasing because of 1808 and the cotton gin. Okay? And the cotton gin. Let's read the right side there. Aiden, please. Cultivation.
Overcultivation use of arable good land in the southeast. The free and forced slave migration of peoples across the continent.
Okay, very good. And tomorrow we'll talk about some resistance to this. Don't forget that assignment. Republic of Motherhood versus Cult of Domesticity for Wednesday.